In Matthew 24, according to Jesus Christ, the Son of God, before the consummation of time, the world will experience specific signs prior to his coming. Spiritual deception on every level, wars, rumors of war, including ethnic fighting, government fighting, food shortages, earthquakes, and storms throughout the earth. All these signs are the initial starting points, like birth pains, to usher in the completion of the age, the consummation of time, the end of the age. Faith Bible Broadcast Network presents the End Time News video podcast. Welcome to our coverage of Hurricane Eta on Faith Bible Broadcast Network. I'm Rick Hallworth, and this is the End Time News video podcast, bringing you accurate news that will help you see with spiritual eyes in the end of the age. The initial reports of this storm said it would be a Category 2 hurricane by landfall in Nicaragua on Tuesday, and subsequent reports have coverage of street flooding and rescues. Truth be told, the severity and devastation of this storm is far worse.
Hopefully we don't have to wait a long distance before we get the chance for seeing the tropics quiet down, because we're talking about a good distance away from Houston. This area right here of disturbed weather now becoming a named storm, Tropical Storm ETA. And we are talking about this system packing winds of 40 miles per hour, moving to the west at a good pace of 15 miles per hour, and it's roughly just 300 miles southeast of Jamaica. And it's going to be making its way towards Central America, strengthening to eventually a hurricane. It'll be our 12th hurricane of the season before it goes in towards Honduras and Nicaragua in that vicinity right there, probably bringing around a lot of rain, a lot of wind, and a lot of beach erosion for those communities.
We are tracking ETA as it lingers near land in Central America, bringing catastrophic flooding here. These images out of Honduras showing residents walking through waist-deep water. Look at that. And Guatemala's president says at least 37 people have died in 3 landslides triggered by ETA's rains.
A Black Hawk helicopter crew working fast to rescue residents stranded by floodwaters. There are a total of 4 U.S. Army helicopters and more than 24 military personnel deployed to provide immediate life-saving support to storm victims.
Se lo va a llevar. Vamos, para atrás. Se fue el puente, señores, en vivo. Se lo llevó el puente. Se lo llevó. ¡Fue en vivo! Se lo llevó.
Mira el otro, se quedó al otro lado. Solo la cabeza.
Sí, no. Ahí le digo a Abuel que te miró. Está rajado, mira. Bien. Ya rajó, mira, para adelante arriba.
¡A tiempo, chiquito!
¿Cuántas días se fue?
Ese ya lo aflojó. Y con esta agüita se va.
Maylen está ahí, ve, le dije que se regresara para el pueblo.
Miren, caballeros, el río ya desbordó lo que es buscando el carretero que va para la 22 H95. Desbordó por el lado del 115, el lado de la Limonera. Esos son los choquetes de agua que está cayendo del lado del bordo para el lado de la finca.
The death toll from torrential downpours unleashed by Storm ETA leapt on Friday as Guatemalan soldiers reached a mountain village where speculation of 150 people were killed by a landslide, adding to dozens of other dead in Central America. The devastating weather front brought destruction from Panama to Honduras to Mexico. The tally adds to a confirmed storm-related death toll of more than 229 Central Americans, according to regional officials, local media, and wire services. Rescue teams on Saturday dug through mud and debris in a remote village in central Guatemala, searching for more than 150 people whose homes were swallowed by a massive mudslide caused by rainfall from remnants of Hurricane ETA. Francisco Mas, a retired Guatemalan Army general who has been coordinating rescue efforts since Thursday, said that part of a mountain slope sheared off and smothered some 24 homes in the village of Queja. Rescuers have found 3 bodies so far and believe that at least 150 people have been killed. Many of those who lost their lives in the village of Queja in the central Guatemalan region of Alta Verapaz were buried in their homes after mudslides swallowed around 150 houses, according to Army spokesman Ruben Teles. ETA roared ashore as a Category 4 hurricane on Tuesday along the northeast Caribbean coast of Nicaragua, and for the next several days churned slowly through northern Nicaragua, then Honduras, blasting high winds and dumping torrential rainfall across Central America that has caused widespread flooding and landslides. Though the weather system was downgraded to a tropical storm, then a tropical depression, it continued to bring devastation to the region after moving back over the Caribbean on Friday. It has regained enough strength by Saturday morning to be classified again as a tropical storm. As previously mentioned, Hurricane ETA's torrential downpours toppled trees, engorged swift-moving rivers, and ripped down parts of a mountainside above the village of Queja in the central Guatemalan region of Alta Verapaz, burying dozens of people in their homes. Gloria Keck, a member of the Poco-Emchi people and a resident of Queja, said 22 family members went missing after the mountain collapsed onto the village. All her family is gone. She's the only survivor. Her dad, mom, siblings, aunts and uncles, grandparents, they're all gone. 22 family members, and it's just her alive. A visibly distraught Keck, carrying a small child in her arms, said through an interpreter. The devastating weather front spread destruction from Panama to Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras, and Mexico, and has continued to push the death toll higher in those countries. It now stands above 229 and counting. The devastation harked back to Hurricane Mitch, which killed some 10,000 people after its final totals in Central America in 1998. Hurricane ETA was classified as a tropical depression in Panama, with hundreds of people evacuated from Chiriqui, Panama, following heavy rainfall and flooding caused by the storm. Local officials issued a yellow alert for the province on Thursday. At least 17 people have died in floods and landslides from ETA. Though it had weakened to a tropical depression, it was still bringing heavy rain to parts of Central America on Friday, according to the National Hurricane Center. The Meritorious Fire Department of Panama and the director of the National Civil Protection System, CINAPROC, Carlos Rumbo, confirmed the discovery of 5 dead bodies from the 7 people initially reported as missing. The 5 bodies were found in the Tierras Atlas sector, where a river overflowing allegedly affected 2 families. Among the bodies found there are 3 minors and 2 adults. Rumbo also said this morning that a helicopter with personnel from the National Aeronaval and the National Civil Protection System were able to enter the highlands to carry out rescues. The evacuation of 753 people who were kept isolated on the roads to a safe place was carried out in the Bambito sector. 53 more people who were stranded in that sector were evacuated. The authorities asked people who had vehicles who were in sectors vulnerable to landslides or floods to leave these areas to safeguard their lives. Once again, at least 17 people have lost their lives after heavy rainfall caused flooding in several provinces of Panama over the last few days. Panama suffered deaths from flash flooding only a few months earlier. In August of 2020, Panama's National Civil Protection System, SINAPROC, said 11 members of the same family, including 9 children, died after their home was swept away by flash flooding. According to SINAPROC, flooding from the Bejuco River swept away their family home near Calovora in Veraguas province during the night. Heavy rains also caused damage to 30 homes in the Colón district. Also, an overflowing stream caused damage to 4 homes in the village of Sarapunta in the Chiriqui province in August. Earlier this year, 2 people died and 13 homes were severely damaged after a landslide in Panama on May 5th. Highway 10 is the road between Chiriqui and Bocas del Toro in the Guatemala district. Heavy rains, flooding, and landslides associated with Hurricane ETA have cut off this route in devastating fashion. The storm reached Panama's Chiriqui province on November 4th, causing road blockages in as many as 7 points and the complete collapse of the road northeast of Degualaca and west of the Fortuna Forest Reserve, effectively leaving the north section of communities on Highway 10 cut off from the rest of the country. Here is the before and after photo of the Highway 10 collapse bordering the coffee store La Cabana. The road is closed until further notice. Over 70 people have been stranded overnight on the road in Hornito. As of 8:30 a.m. on November 5th, Pulso Informativo reports they are running out of food, water, and means of communication, awaiting assistance of any kind. There are reports of Chiriqui farmers who have lost much of their crops as a result of this natural disaster, which stands to complicate supplies even further. The islands had just opened up for visitors in October and were expecting mostly Panamanian tourists during the first months, who primarily arrive on this road. Hurricane ETA is a picture of devastation that will continue to unfold like many storms in recent memory, like Hurricane Dorian in September of 2019, a monster Category 5 with record winds of 185 miles per hour that obliterated everything in its path, leaving 70,000 people homeless in the Bahamas and 2,500 people missing and presumed dead. My report on this storm turns toward Panama and specifically the province of Chiriqui. Because I lived there for a year with my family as missionaries, the devastation is personal, affecting the people I shared the gospel of Jesus Christ with. As a disciple of Jesus Christ, I was faithful in preaching the gospel to Panamanians, including the warnings from Jesus in Matthew 24, when asked by his disciples about the signs of his return and of the end of the age. This is the basis of this news program, the End Time News video podcast. Looking at Matthew 24, then Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said to them, "Do you not see all these things? Assuredly, I say to you, not one stone shall be left here upon another that shall not be thrown down." Now as he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, "Tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?" And Jesus answered and said to them, "Take heed that no one deceives you. For many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and will deceive many. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines, pestilences, and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Then they will deliver you up to tribulation and kill you, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. And then many will be offended, will betray one another, and will hate one another. Then many false prophets will rise up and deceive many, and because lawlessness will abound, the love of many will grow cold. But he who endures to the end shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all the nations, and then the end will come. Well, I want to focus on two words in this account from Jesus in Matthew 24. The word sign, which in Greek is semeion, which means indication or a distinguishing mark. What are the signs prior to the Lord's return? Well, this Greek word semeion, a sign, typically means a miraculous sign, given especially to confirm or authenticate, and emphasizes the end purpose, which exalts the one that gives the sign. Accordingly, it is used dozens of times in the New Testament for what authenticates the Lord Jesus Christ and his eternal purpose, especially by doing what mere man cannot replicate or take credit for. From the Matthew 24 account, we're looking at two specific words for this study. Semeion, which is sign, a distinguishing mark, indicating that it is coming from the Lord himself. And in Matthew 24 and verse 7, the word seismos, which means a commotion. Now, in English, it's translated as earthquake only, but it really does not do it justice. It means both things. And it could be shaking as an earthquake or a storm. It literally means both and comes from the Greek word seo, a commotion of the air, a gale, which is a tempest, or a commotion of the ground, which is obviously an earthquake. So the word seismos means both. It's a commotion of either the air or the ground, but it literally means tempest and earthquake in English. The Lord makes it clear that these signs will be associated with his coming, prior to his coming, and that is the question from the disciples. So what does it mean, his coming? Well, it's the Greek word parousia, which means his second coming, the personal presence of the king, the arrival of the owner, the royal visit of the king. So that's what parousia means. The coming of the Lord is his return, the second coming of Jesus Christ. Well, personally, I've never seen the kind of tracking that this Hurricane ETA, with its crazy shifting direction, is taking place. If we look at some of the history, just for a baseline, back in 2012 with Hurricane Sandy, it came up from the Pacific, South Pacific, and went north through Cuba, along the Bahamas, and in relation to kind of the coast there near Florida, and then up the East Coast, and then into the shoreline, somewhere around New York and Massachusetts, if I remember correctly. And then looking at Tropical Storm Dorian, it obviously was east in relation to the Bahamas and came with a 175-mile-per-hour torrent right at the Bahamas and headed directly towards Florida. So pretty much a straight path in relation to the wind. But looking at the Hurricane ETA, it is just absolutely nuts. You see that it was coming directly westerly from the east towards Nicaragua. It came down a little bit and then swung up onto land and literally reversed direction and then began to head up from Mexico back up towards Cuba and then is moving northward towards Florida and then now supposedly moving a little westerly as well, where its path will end up. Just absolutely crazy direction, however, and That is the thing that with this storm is that it's just very different from what we have seen in the past, for sure. Now, we know that the Lord tells us that all these signs that are associated with his coming are simply the beginning of sorrows. They are the birth pains, the severe agony that we have to go through prior to his return. And so we are to not lose heart. We are to stay the course and continue to be faithful to him, and also to preach the gospel faithfully in all the world as a witness to all the nations. And that is the purpose of the End Time News video podcast, is to do just that, to bring these signs into the light so that we can understand the truth of God's Word and the authentication of God's Word, confirming exactly what he says is going to happen prior to his return. Well, as we've examined the tracking of other hurricanes like Sandy and Dorian, we can see that Hurricane Eta has a very unique, distinguishing mark of changing direction. These signs confirm the words of Jesus Christ, who is the Son of God. What is the purpose of these signs? To correct us and break us of worldly lusts and desires that will eventually lead to eternal destruction. Proverbs 16:8 says, "Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before stumbling." How patient has the Lord been with you? How patient is the Lord with all of the moral corruption in the world today? The Word clearly tells us that God will bring every work into judgment, including every secret thing, whether good or evil. The days of grace are coming to a close, and the Lord wants everyone to realize that they are guilty before him as transgressors of the moral law. Sinners. We're all sinners. We've been born into sin. And as we get older, we've all lied, we've all stolen, committed adultery, fornication. The Lord himself said, "I tell you, you shouldn't commit adultery, but I tell you the truth, that anyone that looks with lust upon another has committed adultery already in his heart." What about idolatry? Worshiping anything other than the one who created you, having an image of God that is not true. Well, there is only one way which God the Father has ordained for you to be saved, and that is through faith in his Son, Jesus Christ. So John chapter 3, verse 13 through 21. Let's read. "No one has ascended to heaven, but he who came down from heaven, that is the Son of Man who is in heaven. And as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. He who believes in him is not condemned, but he who does not believe is condemned already, because he has not believed in the name of the only begotten Son of God. And this is the condemnation, that the light has come into the world, and men love darkness rather than light, because their deeds were evil. For everyone practicing evil hates the light, and does not come to the light, lest his deeds should be exposed. But he who does the truth comes to the light, that his deeds may be clearly seen, that they have been done in God."